Hi kids, it's Bunny with another junk journal, and this one I've named Valerie, and she is a sweetie. Soft back, covered in this pretty pink fabric and this pretty lacy doily-like thing, and have a little heart brooch on the front. And before I get into it, I want to show you these little mini journals that I'm including along with it. Usually I'd stick them inside the journal, but it makes it too fat, so I just leave them outside the journal. But they're, complete with mini ephemera, and I think this one has little bags with little mini journaling cards in it. And then this one's even smaller and cuter, and it's got little mini things in it. And so that's that. I didn't forget it this time. And now we'll open up the main course, the actual journal itself, and we'll adjust the camera, pull out just a hair. Okay. That's fine. Okay. And in the first, inside the cover, we have a pocket with a little, what do you call these? Anyway, and we have a journaling card. All journaling cards are blank on the back, so you can journal on them. There is a tag. All tags are blank on the back, so you can journal on them. Here is a vintage photograph. This lucky lady between two men in uniform. And there's a teeny weeny little envelope, which inside has a teeny weeny journaling card that I made, and a little vintage stamp. I'll put that back together. And then here's an envelope. Inside of it, glassine envelope, is a note for the person who buys the journal, telling them about the journal and what it can be used for. And the pretty digitals in this journal are by the Paper Cameo on Etsy, and I believe that goes for the pages as well as the tags. So in this tuck we have a journaling card, very fantastical, and a tag. And here's a little glassine envelope that I've decorated. I put a little sticker inside. And pages, a lot of pages are coffee dyed, and I put some lace on the edges of some of them, and little clusters here and there, all sorts of little things. Here's a page from a vintage trading stamp book, and this is a vintage letter. And here's a page out of a vintage book, a page out of a vintage cookbook. I have a little ruffle here. Here's a page out of a vintage ledger, 1964. So I've folded over. In this pocket is a journaling card that is inside of a glassine bag that I've embossed with gold, and a small tag, and another teeny weeny envelope which has teeny weeny stuff inside, just like the other one. And this is an envelope, and open it up, and inside is a vintage calling card. It's the hidden kind, where the name is hidden underneath the pretty graphic. Let's see if I can get it back in. Hey, I did. How about that? And moving on, more vintage pages. This is some handmade paper. A page from a vintage magazine. This is some sort of glassine type paper with newsprint on it. It's not vintage, but it's just an interesting thing. And here's a doily. This envelope flips out, and inside is a pretty journaling card and a vintage photograph. And this was tucked in there. That's a vintage, some vintage stationery for you to journal on. Some vintage sheet music in German. More pages from vintage books and magazines. And this is a floating pocket that has a pretty picture from a greeting card that I fussy cut. And inside is a vintage hanky. A pretty pink lace-edged hanky. Moving on, here is a large side pocket in which I have put a very large journaling card of these wonderful celestial ladies. I've been saving that card for a while. And here's another journaling card. And there's also some vintage stationery from the Royal Lahaina Hotel in Hawaii. Maui, I believe. And more vintage pages. Music. Ich trage dein Bild stets im Herzen. Don't know what it says. Okay, and here's a vintage photograph of a bunch of grown-ups playing with toy musical instruments. They're all cute. And another tag. Here's a photograph of a little boy who's called Big Fish, and it's just held in by photo corners if you want to remove it and put in your own photo. And as we travel along, we have another flip out envelope. Inside of it is a vintage button card and a journaling card. Oh, and here's an ad from a vintage magazine. The height of fashion. More lovely old pages. Here is a journaling card and a tag and another teeny tiny envelope with teeny tiny contents. And that's the first signature. We come to the second signature. There's only 2 signatures in this one. And there's a journaling card and a tag. And here's a little matchbook-like thing that you can open and write your little secret in. And here is a playing card, some game card of some sort, bunco. Never played that myself. More vintage sheet music. There's a vintage receipt. There's another flip out envelope. Inside of it is a journaling card and a vintage photograph. I should clip that in so it stays, huh? And there's the journaling card. That's some famous actress of days of old. I don't remember her name. More vintage pages. Here's a vintage Monopoly card, tall journaling card, and a little tag. And in this envelope is a vintage playing card. Very pretty. And here's some vellum that I printed some neat digitals on. This is some vintage wallpaper. And vintage newspaper. Here's a little glassine bag, and inside of it is a neat old photograph. Here's Shadow Play from some old book. Here's another glassine envelope with a journaling card in it. I think I'm casting a shadow on that. Well, it's the only way I can reach it in a little teeny envelope. More of that vellum. Here's a floating pocket with a journaling card and a vintage photograph in it. And another tag. There's another little glassine envelope with a sticker inside. And here's a journaling card. And here's a vintage postcard that's been written on. And there's a tag and a little glassine envelope that I put some gold embossing powder on. Inside of it is a tiny little journaling card. Very sweet. And we have another one here, journaling card, and a tag, and a vintage photograph, some extra pretty paper for you to journal on, and another teeny tiny envelope. And that was the back. That was the end. That was inside the back cover. I didn't realize we're there already. Yay! And that's the Valerie journal, and it'll be in my Etsy shop soon if I can get off my butt and put it in there. So be looking for that. It's Mimosa Morn Journals, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.